Hello everyone, welcome to the second part of working with the TSP Python client. I'm Kaveh Shahedi and I'm a machine learning intern at Ericsson with the Trace Compass team. In the first video, we covered how we can use the command line to work with the TSP Python client. In the second part, which is this, we are going to see how we can actually use the Python code to work with the TSP Python client and the Trace server. First of all, you need to install the Trace server in your machine and run it. And after that, you need to clone the TSP Python client repository in your Python project. I have already done it with the TPC directory, the Trace server, like the TSP Python client. And as you can see, everything is here. The point is that if you want to use the TPC or the TSP Python client in your project within your modules, you need to append the TPC path in your sys. So because of the importing the modules inside the TPC or the TSP Python client, I call it TPC, you hear TSP Python client. Because of the importing of the modules inside that, we need to add this so we don't see any errors or conflicts of the overlapping of the importing the module paths. Okay, says everything is done. We need to import the TSP client. So very easily, we just say import the TSP client from this path, and then we create a client with this URL. So this has been given in the documentation. It's the localhost and port 8080, and we need to add this appendix for accessing the Trace server. Very basic example, as we have covered in the first video. We want to open a trace. So as you can see, we just need to say client.open a trace with this name and this path. So if we want to print the status code, as you can see, open trace was successful, 200. Now we want to get the UUID of this trace. We just say the response.model.UUID. So if I save it and run it again, that would be like, oh, print trace UUID. As you can see, the trace UUID is this. Now we want to create an experiment with this trace. If I done it, I just want to remove the printing there. I just say response is like open experiment with this name and with these traces. So as you can see, oh, with the printing. As you can see, the experiment opening was also successful. Now we want to get the outputs of this experiment. But the first thing we need to do is again get the UUID of this experiment. Similar to the previous, we just say model.UUID. Now we want to fetch the outputs of this experiment. We just say fetch experiment outputs with this UUID. Done. If I run it, so you can see everything successful. From this point, I just want to see what outputs do I have. So these are all the outputs, and for each output, let's just print the name and the ID and a separator to just separate them correctly. As you can see, these are the possible outputs that are provided by the Trace server for this specific trace file. Okay, now consider that we want to get the events table. So we need to copy and paste this ID. We don't need to copy and paste it here. We can directly access it through the output.id, but for this case, I just say fetch data tree, because for getting the data, we first need to get the tree of that and see if everything is done. Let's print that. As you can see, the data tree has been fetched successfully. And now get the columns of this table. So we say fetch virtual table columns for this experiment and this output. Now let's just print the columns. It's a built-in print function. We just need to call it. So as you can see, it has been fetched successfully, and these are the columns: timestamp, event type, contents, and to the rest. Now get the actual rows of this table. We want to get the first 10 rows of this event table. So for the parameter, we need to pass from which index and how many rows. Very straightforward and basic. And then fetch virtual table lines for this experiment and this output, which is the events table, and with these parameters. And check the status code. Okay, it has been fetched successfully. And can I see the lines? Yes. You see? And now here we have access to the information of the table. I hope that you have enjoyed the video. For checking out the API documentation, you can check out the repository and all the codes are within, like most of the codes are within the TSP client here. You can see all the required parameters, the functionalities, how you can actually use it in your code. And if you have any further question, please feel free to contact the Trace server, the Trace Compass team. And thank you everyone. I hope you have a very good day.